Did you know that thousands of international students in Australia could suddenly lose the right to bring their spouses or children with them? Yes, you heard that right. Imagine spending years planning your studies abroad only to find out that your family might not be allowed to join you anymore. It sounds unbelievable, but new regulations are shaking up the entire student visa system. Families are panicking, students are stressed, and the rules are changing faster than anyone expected. So, what exactly is happening? Why is the government making it harder for students to include their dependents? And most importantly, what does it mean for your future, your studies, and your family life in Australia? In this video, we're diving deep into the 10 shocking reasons why these changes matter and how they could impact you, whether you're planning to study in Australia or already living there with your loved ones.
Number 1. Restriction on adding new dependents. One of the most shocking changes for international students in Australia is the restriction on adding new dependents. Under the new rules, students may no longer be allowed to include their spouse or children after a certain point in their studies. This is a massive shift from previous regulations, where students had more flexibility to bring their families along. Think about it. Many students plan to reunite with their loved ones once they settle into a new city or after starting their course. Now, those plans could be completely blocked. Families who counted on joining students midway through their programs might face heartbreaking delays or outright denial. This restriction doesn't just affect your visa, it affects your mental health, motivation, and sense of security while studying abroad. The reason behind this change? The government claims it's aimed at ensuring students focus on their studies and can financially support themselves without putting extra pressure on public resources. While that may sound reasonable on paper, the reality for students is much harsher. Practical tip: if you're planning to study in Australia and want your family to join, check the new eligibility timelines carefully. Apply for dependent visas as early as possible, ideally before starting your course. Keep an eye on official updates from the Department of Home Affairs, because missing a deadline could mean your family will have to wait months or even years before they can join you. This rule is a game changer, and understanding it fully is essential for anyone with plans to study in Australia with dependents. Don't let the dream of studying abroad become a stressful battle with bureaucracy.
Number 2. Higher financial requirements for dependents. One of the biggest hurdles introduced by the new rules is the increased financial requirements for students who want to bring their dependents to Australia. Previously, students only had to prove they could support themselves and their family with a reasonable budget. Now, the government has raised the minimum funds you must show, making it much harder for many students to meet the criteria. Why does this matter? Imagine planning your studies abroad, budgeting every dollar for tuition, rent, and daily living, and suddenly being told you need thousands more to cover your spouse or child. For families relying on student income alone, this can feel impossible. Many students are now forced to reconsider whether they can even afford to study abroad with dependents, or if they have to leave family behind. The reasoning behind this change is the government's goal to ensure that students and their families won't rely on public funds while in Australia. While the intention is clear, the effect is significant. Families may have to scramble for loans, savings, or additional work, increasing stress and pressure during an already challenging period of study. Practical advice: start planning your finances as early as possible. Calculate tuition, rent, and living expenses, not just for yourself, but for each dependent. Consider opening a dedicated savings account or exploring scholarships and financial aid that specifically account for family members. Check the official Department of Home Affairs website for the exact updated financial thresholds. Being proactive now can save you months of stress later. In short, the new financial requirements aren't just numbers. They directly affect whether your family can join you, shaping both your study experience and your life in Australia. Meeting these new rules is now more critical than ever. We've put tons of effort into making this video just for you, so let us know your thoughts or experiences in the comments. We genuinely want to hear from you. Subscribe to our channel, it's just one click, and stay updated with more valuable tips. Number 3. Visa processing delays. Another major challenge for international students under the new regulations is visa processing delays. With tighter rules surrounding dependents, the government is now taking longer to review and approve applications for student visas that include family members. What used to take a few weeks could now stretch into several months, leaving students and their families in a stressful limbo. Imagine arriving in Australia with your studies lined up, only to wait endlessly for your spouse or child's visa to be approved. Classes, housing, and even part-time jobs might be affected while you wait. For students who rely on family support, whether emotional or financial, this delay can create unexpected pressure and anxiety. So why are these delays happening? The stricter rules require the government to double-check financials, relationship documents, and eligibility criteria for each dependent. This extra scrutiny adds time to the process and increases the risk that applications could be rejected due to small errors. Many students report being caught off guard, thinking they had plenty of time before needing their dependent visas. Practical advice. If you plan to include dependents in your visa, apply as early as possible, ideally at the same time as your own student visa. Keep copies of all financial and relationship documents ready to avoid delays. Monitor your application online and respond promptly to any government requests. Consider consulting a migration agent to ensure your application is complete and accurate. Small mistakes can lead to long delays. The bottom line? In the world of international study, time is critical. Visa delays can disrupt your academic plans, housing arrangements, and family life. Being prepared and proactive is the only way to minimize the stress caused by these new rules. Number 4. Impact on scholarships and grants. One of the lesser discussed but highly impactful changes under the new regulations is how they affect scholarships and grants for international students with dependents. Many funding programs used to consider your family situation when calculating eligibility or the amount of financial support you could receive. Now, with the restriction on dependents and stricter financial requirements, these calculations could change dramatically, leaving students with less support than they expected. For example, if a scholarship previously provided extra funds to help cover your spouse or children's living costs, that additional support may no longer apply. This means that students who planned their budget around such scholarships might suddenly face a financial shortfall. Even small differences can make a huge impact when tuition, rent, and everyday expenses are already high. The reasoning from the government is that scholarships are meant to support the student's primary education, and family considerations should not compromise that. While this might make sense administratively, it creates a real challenge for students trying to balance both study and family life. Practical advice. If you're applying for scholarships or grants, double-check the eligibility rules regarding dependents. Contact scholarship providers directly to clarify whether your family situation will affect your funding. Start exploring alternative financial options, such as part-time work or external grants that don't restrict funding based on dependents. Ultimately, understanding this change is crucial for financial planning. Missing this detail could mean unexpected expenses or even having to postpone bringing your family. Being informed early allows you to adapt, budget wisely, and ensure that your study experience in Australia isn't derailed by financial surprises. Number 5. Housing challenges. Another major consequence of the new regulations is the impact on housing for students with dependents. With stricter rules on who can be included as a dependent, many families may struggle to find suitable accommodation that meets both legal requirements and practical needs. This isn't just about having a roof over your head. It affects your daily life, comfort, and ability to focus on studies. Previously, international students could plan for family-friendly housing, knowing their spouse or children could join them mid-course. Now, if dependents are restricted or delayed, families may have to find alternative arrangements, which can be stressful and costly. Even students who already live in shared or student housing might need to relocate to private rentals to accommodate family members, creating financial and logistical challenges. The government aims to ensure students are primarily focused on studies and can support themselves independently. While understandable, the reality is that housing becomes a major concern for students who were counting on family support. Crowded or unsuitable living conditions can also lead to stress and decreased academic performance, making this more than just a logistical issue. Practical advice. If you're planning to study in Australia with dependents, start researching housing options early. Look into family-friendly rentals, serviced apartments, or shared accommodations that legally allow dependents. Factor in extra costs for larger apartments, utilities, and transport. It's also wise to maintain a backup plan, such as temporary housing, until your dependent visas are approved. In short, housing is not just about finding a place to live, it's about creating a stable environment for both your studies and your family. Being proactive now can save months of stress and uncertainty later.
Number 6. Work restrictions for dependents. One of the most overlooked but critical changes under the new regulations is how they affect the work rights of dependents. In the past, spouses of international students were often allowed to work in Australia, helping to support the family financially. But now, with stricter rules, dependents may lose or have limited work rights, which can put serious pressure on the student's finances. This change can be particularly stressful for families who relied on dual incomes to manage tuition, rent, and everyday living costs. Without the ability to work, a spouse may no longer contribute to household expenses, leaving the student to carry the entire financial burden alone. For students already managing part-time work alongside full-time studies, this could mean making tough sacrifices or even reconsidering whether bringing dependents is feasible. The government justifies these restrictions as a way to ensure that students are financially self-sufficient and not dependent on public resources. While this makes sense from a policy perspective, for families it translates into less flexibility, increased stress, and tighter budgets. Practical advice. If you're planning to bring dependents, check the latest visa conditions carefully to understand any limits on work rights. Factor in the loss of potential income when budgeting for your family. Explore alternative support options, such as scholarships, savings, or student loans, to offset reduced household income. For some students, consulting a migration expert may help in planning the best approach to meet these new requirements. In short, these work restrictions don't just limit earning potential, they directly impact a family's quality of life and financial stability while studying in Australia. Planning ahead is essential to avoid unexpected challenges that could affect both your studies and family well-being.
Number 7. Study-life balance challenges. One of the most personal and often overlooked impacts of these new regulations is on a student's study-life balance. When dependents are restricted or delayed, students may find themselves managing studies entirely on their own, without the emotional and logistical support of family. This can lead to stress, loneliness, and even burnout, making it harder to focus on academic success. For many international students, having a spouse or children nearby provides stability, motivation, and emotional support. Without them, students may struggle to balance long hours of study, part-time work, and daily life tasks, which can affect mental health and overall well-being.
The new rules force students to make tough decisions, either delay bringing dependents, manage a loan, or bear the added pressure of supporting a family from a distance. Research shows that students who have strong social and emotional support systems tend to perform better academically and experience less stress. By limiting dependence, these new regulations indirectly challenge students to find alternative ways to manage their personal lives, often relying on friends, colleagues, or student networks. Practical advice: to maintain balance, proactively seek out support networks, such as student associations, cultural groups, or counseling services. Set structured routines for study and personal time, and communicate openly with professors if family-related issues affect your performance. If possible, plan family visits in advance and stay connected virtually to maintain emotional support. In short, the new rules don't just affect visas, they impact your daily life, well-being, and academic performance. Understanding these challenges ahead of time allows students to create strategies that protect both their studies and mental health while navigating life in Australia.
Number 8. Travel limitations for dependents. Another major impact of the new regulations is the effect on travel for dependents. Under the updated rules, dependents of international students may face more restrictions on entering or leaving Australia, making visits, family reunions, or emergencies much harder to manage. This can create a lot of stress and uncertainty for students who rely on family support while studying abroad. Previously, spouses or children could travel relatively freely to visit the student during the course. Now, with tighter visa conditions, short-term trips or last-minute arrivals may be denied, delayed, or require extensive documentation. Imagine having a sick family member back home or needing urgent support. These new rules could leave students feeling isolated and powerless. Travel limitations not only affect family life, but can also disrupt academic planning, as students may have to miss classes or exams to accommodate dependent arrivals. The reasoning behind this restriction is to ensure compliance with visa conditions and reduce the risk of dependents overstaying or working illegally. While the goal is understandable, it significantly affects families who rely on flexibility to manage both personal and study-related responsibilities. Practical advice: if you plan to bring dependents, make travel plans well in advance and keep all documentation updated and accurate. Check visa conditions for each family member and be prepared for longer processing times. Maintain communication with your educational institution if travel affects your study schedule, and consider consulting a migration expert to ensure compliance and minimize disruptions. In short, these travel limitations aren't just about logistics. They affect family support, mental well-being, and academic life. Planning carefully and staying informed is essential to avoid unnecessary stress and ensure a smoother experience while studying in Australia.
Number 9. Permanent residency pathways. One of the most long-term and serious consequences of the new regulations is their impact on permanent residency, or PR, pathways for international students. Previously, having dependents included in your visa could contribute positively to PR applications, as family ties and stability were taken into account. Now, with restrictions on dependents, students may find that their eligibility for permanent residency is affected, potentially delaying or even derailing long-term plans to stay in Australia. For students who dreamed of settling in Australia with their family, this is a major concern. Without dependents on the visa, the points system and other PR pathways might no longer reflect your true family situation, reducing the total points you can claim. This means that even after completing studies and gaining work experience, your journey to permanent residency could become longer and more complicated. The government's intention is to ensure that students are primarily focused on education and that family members do not become a financial or logistical burden on the system.
While the reasoning makes sense administratively, the reality is that students with long-term settlement goals must now rethink their PR strategy. Practical advice. If permanent residency is part of your plan, start researching alternative pathways and points requirements early. Consult a registered migration agent to understand how the new rules affect your specific situation. Consider planning ahead by applying for PR as soon as you're eligible, and ensure all documentation accurately reflects your circumstances. In short, the new rules don't just impact daily life, they can alter your entire future in Australia. Being informed and proactive is essential if you want to maintain a realistic plan for permanent residency while managing family considerations.
Number 10. Legal compliance and penalties. The final and perhaps most critical reason international students must pay attention to the new regulations is legal compliance and penalties. Under the updated rules, students who violate visa conditions regarding dependents, whether by overstaying, misreporting family members, or failing to meet financial requirements, could face serious consequences, including visa cancellation, fines, or even deportation. This is not just an administrative hassle. It can destroy your study plans and future opportunities in Australia. Many students underestimate how strictly the government enforces these rules. Even small mistakes, like forgetting to update your visa with changes in family circumstances or missing deadlines, can trigger penalties. For international students already dealing with the stress of studies, this adds another layer of pressure and uncertainty. The government's reasoning is clear. These measures are designed to protect both students and the immigration system, ensuring compliance and preventing misuse of visas. However, for students and families, the stakes are high. Your academic future, financial investment, and family plans could all be at risk if rules aren't followed carefully. Practical advice. Stay informed by regularly checking the Department of Home Affairs website for updates. Keep meticulous records of all visa-related documents, financial statements, and correspondence. If you're unsure about any requirements, consult a registered migration agent immediately to avoid mistakes. Proactively reporting changes in dependents or financial status can also help prevent unintentional violations. In short, these new regulations make legal compliance non-negotiable. Understanding the rules, staying organized, and seeking expert guidance when needed can protect both your studies and your family life, ensuring that your dream of studying in Australia doesn't turn into a legal nightmare. The new regulations on dependents for international students in Australia are reshaping the way families plan for studying abroad. From visa restrictions and financial requirements to work rights and travel limitations, these changes touch every part of a student's life. They don't just affect your ability to bring family, they influence your housing, scholarships, mental health, and long-term residency plans. While the rules are designed to ensure students remain focused and financially self-sufficient, the reality is that navigating them can be stressful and confusing. Understanding these regulations early is crucial to avoiding surprises, planning effectively, and protecting both your studies and family life. By being informed and proactive, students can adapt to these changes and continue pursuing their dreams in Australia without unnecessary stress or setbacks. While the new rules may seem daunting, there are several practical strategies students can use to minimize their impact. Plan ahead financially. Calculate tuition, rent, and living costs for both yourself and your dependents. Start saving early and explore scholarships or financial aid options that include family support. Apply early. Submit your student and dependent visa applications as soon as possible. This reduces delays and gives you time to address any issues. Stay informed. Regularly check the Department of Home Affairs website for updates on visa conditions, travel restrictions, and eligibility criteria. Seek professional guidance. Consider consulting a registered migration agent to ensure applications are complete, accurate, and compliant with new rules. Leverage support networks. Connect with student associations, cultural groups, or counseling services to maintain emotional support and manage study-life balance. Backup plans. Explore temporary housing or alternative financial solutions to handle unexpected challenges.
By taking these proactive steps, students can protect their studies, family life, and long-term goals, turning potential obstacles into manageable challenges. We've poured hours of research and effort into bringing you this guide, so if it helped, show us some love by subscribing. It's just one click. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments. We'd love to hear how these changes are affecting you. And don't forget to check out our previous video for more tips on studying and living in Australia.